Do any of the following situations sound familiar to you? Tara plows into your team and you're hitting her, but her health isn't going down. In fact, it's rising. Or how about when your team gangs up on a wounded L'Oreal only to die to her ultimate, while she makes it out alive with even more health than before? Or you're in an epic struggle with the other team and you're about to win. Then suddenly Piora heals them all. You were all so close. What do all of these have in common? If you guessed recovery or healing, then you guessed right. In this installment of Arena of Valor's workshop, we will cover 2 items that wreck your opponent's ability to heal and recover: the Curse of Death and the Tome of the Reaper. Let's begin. At first, these 2 items seem fairly straightforward. For the physical damage dealers out there, Curse of Death can be made by combining a cleaving claymore and a bloodied club, and has attack damage and lifesteal. For those dealing magic damage, Tome of the Reaper can be made by combining an enchanted scroll, ancient scripture, and a ring of vitality, and gives ability power and HP. What makes these 2 items truly special is their unique passive, Soul Prison. Soul Prison ensures that any target damaged by you can only receive 50% of normal healing and recovery effects for 3 seconds if done by a normal attack, and 1.5 seconds by damage sources other than normal attacks. What makes this so brutal is that Soul Prison affects all recovery effects on the target, including recovery granted from regeneration, lifesteal, and healing. Ouch! These items can be extremely effective in the right hands and the right situation. But when is it a better time to buy Curse of Death or Tome of the Reaper instead of a more straightforward offensive or defensive item? Let's get into it. When's the best time to buy Curse of Death or Tome of the Reaper? Consider buying one of them when facing any of the following heroes. These include heroes with the strongest healing and lifesteal capabilities in Arena of Valor. Heroes that would basically be shut down under the effects of Soul Prison. Now, what type of heroes are best suited to use Curse of Death or Tome of the Reaper within a team? When looking at a team, certain classes are better suited to getting a Soul Prison item than others. Ideally, either the mage and support would each first get a Tome of the Reaper, followed by a Curse of Death for a marksman if necessary. In general, assassins, warriors, and tanks won't be able to use Soul Prison items as effectively as mages and marksmen due to their lack of range. For mages and marksmen, having that extra range makes it easier to affect more targets with Soul Prison. Since the Soul Prison items, Curse of Death or Tome of the Reaper, aren't particularly high damage items, they are mostly used when focusing down a healer or target with strong recovery abilities, thus making ranged attackers more effective at applying Soul Prison. You might wonder why we suggest prioritizing getting a Tome of the Reaper on a mage versus getting a Curse of Death on a marksman. We suggest this based on how we value items internally, which essentially gives different attributes different gold values and then compares it to the total gold cost of the item. Tome of the Reaper has an overall higher value than Curse of Death. You're basically getting a better deal by putting a Tome of the Reaper on a mage than putting Curse of Death on a marksman. When is the best time to buy one of the Soul Prison items? When deciding the right time to purchase one of these, please consider the actual recipe for the item and how it scales with you as you're leveling. For mages, get Tome of the Reaper as the first or second item. For marksmen, Curse of Death should be the 4th item. The reason why mages can get it so early is due to the items needed for Tome of the Reaper are already great buys for the mage in the early game, so it still scales early game for the mage. For Curse of Death, however, the items needed to make it don't scale well early game. For example, When building it by buying the short sword, you'll be holding on to it for quite some time. Whether you choose to spend 660 gold for 60 AD or 410 gold for 10 AD and 8% lifesteal, both aren't particularly helpful when needing to farm early game. That's why it's better to get the Curse of Death for your marksman only after buying a pair of boots and 2 other damage items. The timing on Soul Prison item purchases aren't strict, and of course are dependent on the current situation. For example, if the enemy team has 2 or more heroes with high recovery or healing abilities, or a healer that's snowballing early game, then it would be a good idea to purchase a Soul Prison item early, or having 2 or more heroes equip Soul Prison items. One last important note: special unique passives cannot be stacked. So even if you equip a hero with both Tome of the Reaper and a Curse of Death, any targets the hero hits will still only be affected by the Soul Prison effect, reducing healing received and recovery by 50%. Also, if 2 different heroes with Soul Prison items hit the same target, that target will only be affected by Soul Prison once, thus keeping the 50% recovery and healing reduction effect only. Thanks for visiting the workshop. See you next time.